When McNulty finally lets Bunk in on what he has done, the scene plays less like a confession and more like a man revealing how far gone he already is. He has faked a serial killer. He has taken dead homeless men, altered the meaning of their deaths, and turned them into evidence for a crime that does not exist. He has created a monster because the city refused to care about the murders that were real. Bunk's reaction tells us almost everything about him. He is angry, disgusted, and disturbed, but underneath that reaction is something more personal. Bunk knows McNulty. He knows his arrogance, his recklessness, his ability to turn every problem into a war between himself and the system. But even for McNulty, this feels different. This is no longer just bending a rule or annoying a superior. This is poisoning the foundation of the work itself. The important thing is that Bunk does not react like an innocent man shocked by corruption. Bunk is not clean in that simple television way. He drinks, he cheats, he lies when it suits him, and he understands police culture from the inside. He has seen plenty of ugly compromises. What offends him is that McNulty has dragged murder work into fantasy. Bunk still believes that bodies matter. He still believes that the dead deserve a basic level of honesty. Even in a broken department, even in a city where clearance rates are treated like political numbers, Bunk has a line around the dead. McNulty steps over that line and asks him to admire the cleverness. That is why Bunk's disgust feels so strong. He is reacting to the crime, but he is also reacting to the betrayal. McNulty is using the language of real police work to justify something that destroys police work. He tells himself that the fake serial killer is a tool. Bunk sees the damage immediately. Once a detective starts inventing murders to get resources, every real case becomes infected by that lie. Every file, every witness, every family waiting for an answer now sits inside a department where truth can be treated as strategy. When they involve Lester, the whole scene gains another layer. Lester is the person who should understand the danger better than anyone. He is patient, controlled, and precise. He has spent years watching institutions punish good police work and reward obedience. He understands the department as a machine. He understands how money moves, how bosses protect themselves, how investigations get buried. So when McNulty brings him into the lie, Lester does not respond like Bunk. He sees the scheme, sees the mechanics of it, and recognizes how it could be used. That reaction says something frightening about Lester. His intelligence makes him dangerous. Bunk's morality is emotional and immediate. Lester's morality is colder. He measures outcomes. He has lived with the frustration of doing the job properly and being punished for it. He knows Marlowe's organization is real. He knows the murders are real. He knows the department is starving the case. So when McNulty creates a fake emergency, Lester sees a way to force the city to fund the truth. That is the psychological difference between them. Bunk hears McNulty's confession and thinks about what has been corrupted. Lester hears it and thinks about what can be extracted from the corruption. Bunk sees the lie as a stain. Lester sees it as leverage. McNulty's psychology is the center of all this. He has always had a war with authority, but by this point the war has eaten his judgment. He believes he is fighting stupidity, indifference, and political cowardice. In many ways, he is right. The city does ignore real victims. The police department does manipulate priorities. The bosses do care about optics. The newspaper does chase stories. The mayor's office does respond faster to panic than to ordinary suffering. But McNulty takes that truth and uses it as permission. That is his pattern. He finds a real flaw in the system, and because the flaw is real, he gives himself the right to become reckless. He has a gift for seeing hypocrisy, but very little ability to see his own. He hates the bosses for playing games with numbers, yet he invents a game bigger than theirs. He hates the city for ignoring real deaths, yet he turns dead men into props for his own plan. He wants justice, but he also wants to feel like the only person brave enough to get it. That mixture is what makes McNulty so destructive. He is not a simple bad cop. He is a talented detective with a deep need to prove that he is smarter than the room. His anger at the system is real, but his ego rides inside that anger. He wants the case solved, and he wants the world to admit that he was right. Those two desires become tangled until he can no longer separate justice from self-satisfaction. The fake serial killer exposes the ugliest version of McNulty's old habits. Earlier in the show, his arrogance could still look charming because it was attached to good police work. He pushed when other people gave up. He saw patterns. He cared about victims the department wanted to forget. But Season 5 shows how the same qualities rot when they lose discipline. Persistence becomes obsession. Cleverness becomes manipulation. Moral anger becomes self-authorization. Bunk, in contrast, represents the part of the police department that still has an old-fashioned sense of shame. He may complain, drink, and cut corners, but he has a respect for the job that McNulty has started treating as optional. Bunk's reaction tells us that he understands the difference between a flawed detective and a detective who has made himself bigger than the truth. That is why Bunk's horror matters. He is not defending the institution because the institution deserves blind loyalty. He is defending the work from McNulty's ego. He knows the department is broken, but he also knows that some rules exist because without them the work becomes meaningless. If evidence can be invented, if victims can be repurposed, if panic can be manufactured, Then the detective stops being a person who finds truth and becomes another political actor creating reality for an audience. Lester complicates the moral picture because he is so calm. He does not have McNulty's drunken chaos. He does not seem impulsive. He speaks and thinks like a craftsman. That makes his decision more unsettling. Lester's involvement shows how a rational person can justify something irrational when the institution has disappointed him for long enough. Lester has his own wound. He spent years buried in the pawn shop unit because he did real police work at the wrong time against the wrong people. He learned that the department does not reward truth. It rewards obedience, timing, and political usefulness. By the time McNulty comes to him with the serial killer lie, Lester already has a bitter education in how the city works. He knows that proper channels can be used to bury proper cases, so Lester's reaction is not wild. It is calculated. That is the scary part. He does not fall into the scheme because he loses control. He enters it because he believes control is exactly what he can bring to it. McNulty creates the lie out of desperation and ego. Lester refines it into a tool. He gives the madness structure. Together they reveal two different ways good police become corrupt. McNulty is corrupted by identity. He needs to be the man who sees through everything. Lester is corrupted by disillusionment. He has seen the machine clearly for so long that he begins to think using the machine's own sickness against it is acceptable. Bunk stands apart because he still feels the human cost first. He thinks about the bodies. He thinks about the case files. He thinks about what happens when the lie breaks. He thinks about the thing itself before the strategy around it. That does not make him perfect. It makes him grounded. In a show full of people who can explain their own compromises, Bunk is one of the few who still reacts with a simple moral refusal when the line is too obvious. The scene also says something larger about The Wire's view of institutions. The show does not present corruption as something only villains do. It shows how broken systems pressure serious people into insane choices. McNulty and Lester are not trying to get rich. They are not trying to protect a drug empire. They are trying to catch Marlowe, a man whose violence is real and whose victims have been hidden in vacant houses. Their goal has moral weight. Their method is still poisonous. That is the trap. The show makes us understand why the lie begins without asking us to excuse it. The department has failed. The city has failed. The victims are ignored until McNulty creates a fake pattern that the media and politicians can understand. The serial killer's story works because the city responds to spectacle. A single homeless man dead in the street is invisible. A serial killer targeting the homeless becomes a crisis. McNulty understands the sickness of the city so well that he learns how to exploit it, and that is the most damning part of his psychology. He is right about what gets attention. He is right about the hypocrisy. He is right that the system responds to fear faster than truth. But being right about a broken world does not make every response to it righteous. McNulty's tragedy is that he cannot accept limits once he has decided the system is beneath him. Bunk's reaction gives the audience a moral anchor. Without Bunk, the plot could start to feel like a clever rebellion against bureaucracy. With Bunk there, the ugliness stays visible. He forces the viewer to remember that the scheme is not just a trick against the bosses, it is a violation of the dead. It is a betrayal of every real investigation that depends on trust, procedure, and evidence. Lester's reaction makes the situation more tragic because he should know better, and in a way he does. He knows exactly what he is doing. His choice comes from the belief that the official path has become useless. That belief is understandable in the world of The Wire, but it is also how a careful man talks himself into becoming part of a fraud. McNulty, Bunk, and Lester form a triangle in that moment. McNulty is the rebel who has lost the ability to distinguish justice from personal war. Bunk is the flawed traditionalist who still believes some lines protect the soul of the job. Lester is the master detective whose intelligence allows him to justify crossing the line with elegance and purpose. The scene matters because it strips away the easy version of these characters. McNulty's passion has always had selfishness inside it. Bunk's cynicism has always had decency underneath it. Lester's wisdom has always carried a buried resentment toward the institutions that wasted him. The fake serial killer does not create these traits. It reveals them under pressure. By the end, the lie says less about one bad decision and more about what happens when talented people spend too long inside systems that punish honesty and reward performance. McNulty turns truth into theater. Lester turns theater into strategy. Bunk refuses to pretend the performance is harmless. That is why the scene is so important. It is not only about McNulty confessing a scheme, it is about three detectives showing who they are when the case, the city, and their own private wounds collide. McNulty wants to beat the system so badly that he becomes another version of its dishonesty. Lester wants the real case solved so badly that he lends genius to a lie. Bunk looks at both men and sees the cost before they are willing to. In The Wire, that is often where character is revealed. People do not reveal themselves through speeches about morality. They reveal themselves in the compromise they can live with. McNulty can live with the lie because he thinks the result will redeem it. Lester can live with the lie because he thinks the target deserves the risk. Bunk cannot live with it because, for him, the job still has to mean something even when the department around it does not. The fake serial killer is one of the clearest examples of The Wire's cold view of good intentions. The show understands that people can do wrong things for reasons that sound almost noble. It also understands that once the truth becomes optional, the damage spreads beyond the original target. McNulty's lie begins as a way to force justice, but it exposes how easily justice can become another story people tell themselves when they want permission. That is the real psychology of the scene. McNulty needs a war, Lester needs a way around defeat, Bunk needs the work to stay connected to the dead. Their reactions are brief, but they open up the whole character map. One man crosses the line, one man studies how useful the line can be after it has been crossed, and one man stands there disgusted because he still remembers why the line was there.